things that are gold-plated circuit board, and there's a signal that the Lubricheck generates and sends through the oil, and it depends upon what kind of feedback comes, from that signal. How strong that signal is will tell us the condition of the oil.
Okay. Excellent. Chad, I've done something a little different here today. I've actually brought in some samples of motor oil, some used motor oil, as well as new motor oil, so we could run a test right here in the studio while we have you on the phone.
And we're actually videoing it.
And we're going to video this for our website. Now, Chris, if you notice, I have these 4 samples here.
Yes, I see them.
These little syringes.
Yeah, Chad, Ray is holding 4 syringes. He has them in his hand. Yeah, and they're all filled with oil.
You can tell us Now, what I did is I took some out of my car, but I also took some out of my waste oil stash.
He also took some out of his elbow.
I said, let me see, how the waste oil fares, because the question we always answer is when to change our oil.
And our question to Ray is usually, why does he keep waste oil for so long?
Well, until I get to dump it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the procedure...
Well, I think if you inject that into your elbow, if you got little arthritis or something, that should probably fix you right up.
That might work, yeah.
What a good idea.
So tell me if it works first, okay?
We'll run it through. The first thing we have to do is we have to turn the device, make sure the device is clean, and switch it to on, which we do. And and a couple of LEDs will light up. If you have just a red LED, that indicates there's a low or bad battery.
See, you need fingernails to make sure that you can turn the thing on.
Right,
okay.
So we're having a green and a red LED flashing, which indicates good.
Let me look again.
And at room temperature, we will take some of this oil.
Wait a minute, this isn't room temperature. Ray likes to leave the studio an icy cold 45 degrees.
Well, that's true.
This oil will not flow, I'm sure of it.
I'm going to drip some waste oil into this.
Scrape it off of the syringe.
Right. Peel it off like motor honey.
There it is. It's on the sensor. Okay. And now when we press we have it set to gas. There's a gas or diesel button. We have it set to gas. Yes, we do.
Right.
Now we'll press the button and hold it, and the LED range swings.
Look at that. Chad, this is the first time I'm actually seeing this. So.
Actually, I think I had a misstep here because I switched it to gas when I was after I'd already put the sample in.
Okay, Ray ruined it.
So I think I have to start from scratch.
I'm telling you, the man falls apart.
Oh, a bummer. What's the reading?
Well, it gave me a range of a swing from red to from green to red. Just went back and forth like a rainbow.
789, 789. Yeah, that would indicate that the sensor grid has not been adequately cleaned.
Okay, so let me turn this off.
Or that you turned the switch on.
That's what it was.
After you put the oil in place. So
I'm telling you, Chad, Ray falls apart like a cheap suit.
Well, this is good to know because people that buy this product are going to encounter the same thing themselves, and they're not going to know what the heck is going on. So now we're going to dispel that, and we're going to show them what to do.
He's spitting in it. Is that okay?
So there we go. Sensor is cleaned. Device is
it's clean. Now, you say clean. One thing that probably our biggest confusion with customers is that they don't clean it enough.
Okay.
It may look clean, if you've got eyes as old as mine, it looks pretty clean no matter what it is, but you've got to really polish it off with either a microfiber rag or some of your wife's deluxe toilet tissue.
Yeah, I was using some very soft paper toweling here.
Used as
T-shirt.
T-shirt.
As long as it gets down in between those little copper tracks and gets all the oil out of there, you got to be pretty vigorous with it.
All right, so let's try it again. Let me put some.
Chad, is there a solvent that you would recommend to actually clean the little disc?
Actually, it's excuse me, I'm getting a little bit distractions here. A couple of drops of gasoline would work great.
Oh, gas. All right, I've put the new oil in, and I will now press the test button.
He's going to press the test button.
And we swung. Right now, Chris, what's the reading? It's
I don't know.
It swung full range, and it came up to the second green LED.
Yes.
The second green indicator.
Okay, that means the oil's not too bad.
This was my waste oil.
Wow.
This was from a slurry of waste oil that I just keep keep, because it's going to go to the dump, so I have about 5 gallons of it. And that is actually showing good. That surprised the heck out of me.
So there's that sweeping indicator that's above the little disc that basically is showing you whether it's good or bad.
Yes, that's correct.
So
now, one thing about if you've got waste oil that's been sitting there for a long time, it will settle out. I mean, so you have contaminants circulating in the oil, and maybe you're losing a main bearing, and you wouldn't know it because it's all going to drop to the bottom of the oil. So it really, so you'll get a little bit of a false reading with dirty oil if it's been sitting for a long time and hasn't been stirred up.
As a control, I brought in some brand new, fresh motor oil, which I've just put into the sensor. Whoa! And lost my my device here. And I will now test the fresh motor oil. And there we go.
First stuff. What do we have?
I guess I didn't clean the sensor well enough because now.
Wow. Falling apart, Ray.
Yeah, I got that old 789 thing.
Can't teach him anything.
Yeah, don't do it. I'll be right there. To catch a flight.
Chad, where are we talking to you from? Where are you?
We're just outside of the Twin Cities in Minnesota.
Oh, wow. I've spent a little time in Minnesota.
Most people spend very little time in Minnesota, especially in the winter.
I was one of them.
We still have about 8 inches of snow everywhere, so it's been a bit brutal.
And it was, it's so funny because it wasn't the snow; it was the wind.
Oh, we had that yesterday.
Yeah. I actually owned an old Buick convertible, and I couldn't keep a top on the car.
Bad idea.
It kept blowing off. No matter how hard I stapled it down, it kept blowing off.
I just went to Sample B, and I put another waste oil sample in here.
Okay, let's see what Ray does.
And let's see, we will now test the waste oil.
Let me tell you, this video is fascinating.
And Chris, what LED is lit? Right there. It's the first one, right above gas.
Right, the first one.
That's where the new oil should show. Right above that's the best.
So Chad, when it swings all the way over to the green, that is like the best. I'm assuming, correct?
Yeah, you'll see on that little depression, there's little numbers 1 through 10.
Yeah, they're hard to see. Yeah.
So the light to the farthest to the left is number 1, which means that should be basically new oil. Right. However, I need to stress that if you haven't cleaned this sensor well, it's going to tell you your oil's not that bad. You've got to really make sure you get the old oil out of there. Just jumping back a minute ago, you asked how it works. When you initially turn on the unit by sliding the power switch, and it's supposed to blink 110, 110, telling you it's ready. In that couple seconds, it actually looks at the reading or the dielectric constant of the air, and it will then consider, okay, the room temperature is X, the air is reading, like air should read, and then it's ready for the oil sample. However, during that second or two, if it's got a little smear of nasty oil that you haven't seen because you're in a hurry or something, it will then factor that in and say, oh, okay, the air is pretty dirty or something.
Yes,
and
it will then the equation, yeah. Well, we're in New York, so.
Well, there you go. So what happens is it will then, it's assuming you've got a nice clean sensor and relatively clean air, and it will judge accordingly. But if you've got kind of a dirty sensor, then when it gets the oil, it's going to kind of, bias that reading to, I guess the oil's not so bad because the air was so bad. Right. If that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Now, can this sensor be cleaned with any type of alcohol-based product?
Alcohol doesn't dissolve oil all that well, but gasoline sure does. If people, if you're getting tired of scrubbing away with some toilet tissue to try to get all the oil away, just put a couple drops of gas on a rag, and then it strips the oil out really nice.
Yeah, Ray just spitting it, so
Chris, as you can see, I just put in the fresh oil again, and it does indicate the first number 1 LED, which is the best condition.
Yes, it does. I'm seeing that.
Yep.
So that was that.
This thing is fascinating, Chad.
Excellent.
This really is.
Now, the question that I had was, it's indicating oil usability, oil life, but does it, because it's seeing through the capacitance through the oil, but can it take into effect any particulate matter that's in that oil, or does that play in with into the formula?
It averages all in, and I'd like to address that. We had when this product was in development about 3 years ago, We've been working on it a long time. But the engineer who was really the mastermind of the thing, Charles, came into the office, and he'd been checking his minivan every several days or week or something with a prototype. And he was a little frustrated. He said, gee, I was expecting to get an oil level of about 5, and the thing came in at a 7. And he thought there was something wrong with his prototype. So we didn't think anything more of it. About a week later, he came into the office the first thing in the morning. He said, hey, Chad, you're a gearhead. What does it mean if I started my minivan this morning and I got this big puff of white smoke? And I said, well, does it smell a little sweet? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, that's antifreeze. You've probably got a head gasket leak or something like that. You got to go get some of that powder, put it in the radiator, and it'll seal it up.
Right.
And then it was a little bit later, the light kind of came on. I thought, wait a minute. It was a week or two ago when the Lubricheck gave him a surprisingly high reading, and then we realized that he had the first bits of antifreeze getting into his oil.
It diagnosed it early.
Exactly, and had we been paying attention or had more confidence in the prototype, we would have realized that something was developing in the engine.
That's
so just to wrap that up, what we recommend for people who are pretty serious about their engines, they should, if they see a surprising reading, like a Porsche 911 customer of ours did, and I'll tell that in a second, you may want to send it in for analysis. Because the Lubricheck will basically say, hey, there's an issue here, but I can't tell you what. And then the lab can say, oh, there's wear metals, there's something else in there.
Well, it's just like, if you see a check engine light on your dash and you don't know what the problem is, that's the indicator to make you go to someone who can diagnose it further.
Exactly.